referring to.
Right.
Did it?
Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition, I believe you're referring to.
Yes.
I tweeted out, sorry, not beautiful. Yeah, people were very happy with that.
And then everyone got upset.
Yes, they did.
Welcome to the Halloween episode of our podcast. Hope you enjoy. We'll get into why everybody got upset in a minute. We'll get into why. So, welcome to Why Complain When You Can Whine, making sense of the senseless. Join us as we attempt to make sense of toxic nonsense while drinking wine. I am Dr. Jody Larman, licensed clinical psychologist in the state of California. Therefore, everything that we discuss on this podcast is purely for psychoeducational and entertainment purposes only. And this is our Halloween. I love Halloween, but I love to dress up, but I don't have anywhere to dress up for. So I don't have a lot of dress up stuff, but I have my little, Nightmare Before Christmas ears, my Halloween shirt, and my Chucky over there. He's not Chucky, it's a Cheerios guy. He's actually really cute. And my wine specifically for tonight is called Chronic Cellars Red Blend. And I got it because it's got a skeleton on it.
Oh, that's fabulous.
But it's also got augmented reality. And if you put your camera up to the label, the skeleton comes to life and plays a dice game with you. It's pretty cool.
Well, hello there. I'm Purple Paradise, and I'll be your impossibly charming host today. Yeah, I added that charming bit myself. I got this game of dice made just for us. I promise it's not rigged or anything. Trust me.
And then I have my glass says, drink up, witches.
Oh, I love that. That is so cool. Oh, I should have a glass that says drink up, witches, but I don't. I just have my lovely glass with my...
Oh, I like that though.
Yeah, it's cool. It's like a diamond. I don't have scotch tonight. I did on our last podcast, but tonight is all about the vodka remix. So yes. So
our co-host tonight, or guest, or whatever you want to say, it's fine with me.
Yes, thank you, Jody, for inviting me on, Dr. Larman. This is always a pleasure. I've been on here once before. I am a clinical registered therapist from Vancouver, British Columbia, so just north of Jody. And yes, and
your name
is Bree. You can tell I don't do this very often. My name is Brianne, Bree for short, and yeah, we are going to have a very good conversation this evening.
Tell us, okay, since you sent me this video, I'm so glad you did. With the caveat of, if I can remember, it's going to piss you off, it's going to make you upset, then it's going to make you mad, and then it did all of the above. So can you give a little bit of background on who this
person is?
Lovely person is.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So this is what you're going to see, and Dr. Larman's going to play another clip here, is Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is a very controversial clinical psychologist in Canada. He is located in Toronto, Ontario, and teaches at the University of Toronto as a professor, and also has a clinical practice. And he has written a book, and lots of people love this guy. He's had lots of notoriety and lots of celebrity status and lots of whatever, but is very controversial. And as a therapist living here, we don't really look up to him. He's a bit of a dinosaur. I've done a few social media stints on this clip in particular, and Jody and I'll get into our history. We have very similar history with this topic personally. I'm not going to speak for her, but for myself, I have a history with anorexia long ago, and it's very triggering for those who have body dysmorphia and eating disorder issues. So
my story is I've had eating disorder and body image issues since puberty. And I honestly thought it would get better as I got older. I remember my mom, when I was young, my mom was thin and she used to always eat nonpareils. They're called snow caps at the movies. She used to eat candy like almost every night when she was in bed watching TV. And I remember thinking, I can't wait when I get older, I'll be able to eat anything, because you get to when you're older. Look at my mom eats candy at night. Yeah, little did I know. It's even worse when you get older. So it's actually gotten sadly, it hasn't gotten better. I've talked to a therapist about it. I've talked to my doctor about it. I do work on it. It's when you're anorexic or bulimic, either one, you are always in recovery, is what I've always learned.
Yep.
You're never recovered.
Nope.
You're always in recovery, just like with alcoholism. You're always in recovery, and you always have to be mindful. And there are times where, like, I was watching on TikTok, there was a nutrition influencer. They were talking about, what is it? Intuitive eating, I think is what it was called. And it's basically eating when you're hungry and eating whenever you want and whatever you want when you're hungry, and not really perseverating or ruminating over the food. And every video that, no shade to her, this is not against the creator by any means, but every video that she had, she was eating to show that it's okay to be eating. But to me, it was so triggering, because all I could think about is, but yeah, you're thin. Yeah, you're thin, so it's okay for you to eat. And I had to unfollow people like that. Again, not because there's anything wrong with what they're saying or doing, but it was because I can't sit and watch. I don't even know how foodies do it. I watch foodies eating. I go to Disneyland all the time. I watch them with all the foods that they eat, and I'm like, how? I can't.
Yeah, I can relate. And I think what Jody is saying is that once you have an eating disorder, you always have an eating disorder, and you have to make sure in recovery that it just doesn't control you. But once you've got it, it's kind of like your brain's wired that way. There's also major genetic components, especially with anorexia. They found 2 genes in particular. And my mom, I would say anorexic tendencies, but more full-blown anorexia when I was quite small. She was always very thin. And we'll get into the sociocultural parts of this, but there are genetic components to eating disorders. So tonight's podcast, we're really going to delve into, and Dr. Larman will be able to really kind of get into kind of the psychophysiology behind eating disorders. But really, her and I both, and of course, working in mental health, can very much relate to this. And anytime you see anybody around body shaming, food, body dysmorphia, and our sociocultural crap, which is exactly what Peterson goes off about, which is why it's so triggering for us. Again, you've got this forever. And if we didn't have the dynamics, or our society wasn't the way that it is, maybe it wouldn't be what it is. But anytime you see food, people eating, and somebody thin, it will always be triggering.
For myself, I wanted a girl when I found out I was pregnant, because I know girl stuff. I don't know boy stuff. And I knew I was going to be a single mom, because I knew I was going to be a single mom. So I'm like, I know girl stuff. But when I found out I was having a boy, I'm so relieved. And I tell my son this, because whenever we talk about food, or I talk about food, I tell him, I am so glad, because he eats whatever he wants, whenever he wants, doesn't care. He can finish something all but like 2 bites and then throw it away. And I'm like, how did you do that? I wish I could do that. I have to, I can't just leave that on the plate. Now I have to throw it away. But I'm so glad. And I've told him, because I was so afraid of passing on inadvertently too.
Yeah. Well, genetic components, right?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but also in what I say or don't say, or what I eat or don't eat. Like my son would sometimes ask me, he's like, you haven't eaten today. I'm like, I'm not hungry, because I'm not. But if I had a girl, then it would be both of us aren't eating, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I have 3 girls, and that's a huge fear of mine. And my middle is already starting to do a lot of that. I'm fat, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, and she's 9.
9?
She's 9. And this is where it scares me, especially with my genetic predisposition and the fact that I am always very conscious. Now, I eat in front of my kids and I eat, there's no labeling food, there's no calorie counting. Food is food, it's energy, it's what makes us breathe and function. Period. The end. We don't use the word fat. There's no talk of any. I'm very, very, very conscious of that. So, but yeah, we're really going to get into our society and how it's not getting any better. In fact, it's getting worse. And it is, we're trying to go against what we've created, with what modern day beauty is. So as I was just talking about Dr. Jordan Peterson, what happened in his clip there is he's being interviewed because he made a tweet of a Sports Illustrated model that had been posted, who was not your stereotypical fit looking, toned, muscular, thin, stunning model. She's a model. She's a beautiful woman. She's Asian American woman. She's absolutely stunning. But she was larger. Okay. So she wasn't what we normally see on the cover. And I personally, and Jody will probably most likely agree, Sports Illustrated didn't do it for inclusivity purposes. They're doing it to change what modern day beauty is because it's caused so many mental health problems, eating disorders and body dysmorphia, and not just in biological cisgender women anymore. We are talking across the board to anybody, any walking person on the planet can have any body related psychological issues. In fact, body dysmorphia is more common in men than it is women.
Okay. And there are sadly a lot of men who struggle not only with eating disorders, but not being able to say something.
Yes, because of the gender and because they're men, right? My dad, body dysmorphia, classic gym rat. My mom, thin, like both people used to call them Ken and Barbie. So you wonder why. I had there's massive influence from both parents of looking perfect. Okay, both were perfectionistic. My dad's very OCD. My mom's very OCD. In fact, eating disorders in particular are very much related to obsessive compulsive disorder. Okay, so it's an anxiety disorder. It's a way to control something in your life when you feel out of control. So Dr. Peterson goes off about how this woman was not beautiful. And he posted it on Twitter and he said, this is not beautiful. And then he goes on to saying, you would be very hard pressed to ever land the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine for anybody to be that beautiful, and not everybody can be a Picasso and blah, blah, blah. We're going to show you this, we'd like lots of comments on this podcast when we go to post it, because I think it's a really important discussion.
I'm going to play the whole interview. I think was like 7 minutes that you sent me, but I'm not going to play all 7 minutes. I'm just picking out some parts of it, not taking it out of context. It's the context, and then we'll talk about it. And then there's a little more, and then we'll talk about it. And some of it is just his own hearing himself talk. So it's not relevant to this, but I'm going to share my screen. Come on. Oh, there we go.
Not in a personal way, but it's unbelievably manipulative for about 3 different reasons. The first is it's a very tawdry attempt to capitalize on cheap sales. And I mean cheap in a specific way. Sports Illustrated hit the gold mine with their swimsuit cover, I suppose 20 years ago, whenever they established that. Because it was obviously it's a sports magazine, so it's about athletics. It's about athletic people. It's about athletic bodies. And they had a swimsuit issue, and it really was a big hit. And then it became kind of a cultural icon. And it's a very specific kind of cultural icon because it focuses on a very exceptional kind of high-end beauty. And so that beauty would involve symmetry and signals of youth, because that's part of beauty, sexual beauty, physical beauty, waist to hip ratio for women. But with Sports Illustrated, it's also highlighting a kind of athleticism in body type. And that's a very specific form of beauty. You have to be young, you have to be female, generally, you have to be extremely athletic, you have to be shapely in a very particular way. And that would be with a waist to hip ratio of 0.68, because that's what's been established cross-culturally as ideal from the perspective of male sexual interest, let's say, but that's also associated with fertility.
Yeah.
Okay, really quickly. And I want to say more about this in just a minute, but as soon as he said beauty and male,
Mhm.
right there, your argument is out the window for me.
Mhm.
Because when you're going to say it's the beauty standard for men,
Mhm.
screw you.
But that's the misogyny. That's his
Oh.
misogyny coming right through, point blank, and basically going on what scientific data of what fertility and male sexuality is drawn to a woman and hip to whatever ratio. It's exactly what's created the mental health problems that we have. I'm sorry, did you miss eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and the mental health problems when you were getting your doctoral? Clearly.
And the thing is, I also looked up the hip ratio thing, and it says ratios between 0.68 and 0.7 are considered hourglass proportions, which many women tag as ideal proportions. However, whether a person has an hourglass shape also depends on the waist to chest ratio and not just the waist to hip ratio. Nowhere does that say that is the ideal standard.
No.
In
No.
society.
No.
It says, sadly, that's the hourglass figure, and that's what we tag as ideal only because of fucking society.
And men. Sorry, I'm
Thank
going to
you.
be feminist here for just a second. Fucking men. Sorry,
Men.
boys. I hate to say it, but again, what men deem as beauty, go back to the Renaissance, and Rubenesque women were actually big. Nothing compared to what we are today, or what they consider, and who says, right? So yes, this hip to rate, whatever ratio crap that he's spewing is just such a bunch of it's such garbage. Anyway.
And fertility.
Yeah, like, oh, fuck. Yeah, no. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, don't even get me started on that, because basically what he's saying, my interpretation of what he's saying is, if you don't have that waist to hip ratio, it's going to be harder for you to have kids too. Just so you know. Most
of those women on the kind, we'll get into this too, on the cover of those magazines are brutally unhealthy. They all have eating disorders. They all have problems. And 90% of them probably don't menstruate because their percentage of body fat is so low that they are amenorrhea, which means that they have no period, no menstrual cycle. So they can't actually, they're not ovulating. So therefore, how is fertility possible when your percentage of body fat is too low? Been there, done that. Nope. Impossible.
And just looking at just him saying that swimsuit, it's all about beauty and athleticism. Now, this is what this is the editor of Sports Illustrated said. Let's start with the obvious. The swimsuit issue has always been and always will be all about sexiness, hotness, beauty. And while that theme ties the 55th installment of the franchise to all others before it, it's important to remember that SI Swimsuit is always evolving too, always growing, always searching for new ways to explore the power and potential behind the beauty. So they're not saying beauty is whatever his description
whatever
was.
His ideal is, which is what he thinks is it's stereotypical. It's what we've created as a culture. And he's even admitted that. And but what Sports Illustrated was trying to do was to change the narrative.
This is what he said.
It's unrealistic.
I'm sorry. This is what he said. In recent years, we've worked hard to make the swimsuit issue a celebration of another idea long obvious to those of us in the real world. Even if Hollywood, the fashion industry, and mainstream and social media are sometimes slow to embrace it, the inarguable truth that beauty comes in all forms. Dark, light, curvy, slim, tall, short, all types of beauty are worthy of celebration. So they're not saying we're changing to be inclusive. What they're saying is just like what you said earlier. We have to look at the real world out there. And the people that were on this in Sports Illustrated and on the cover weren't athletic in the sense of, I remember when I was on a dating app and I was asking someone, what do you put? Athletic, thin, slim? I don't know. And a whole bunch of people on dating apps said, don't put athletic, because that's going to mean you're kind of thick.
Mhm.
Like, oh,
Wow.
really? Okay. So, and these women, albeit beautiful, but if you saw them in real life, they're not, it's not something we can all aspire to have and be.
It's so unrealistic. I was a fitness model. I did it. I competed. I was somebody that, like, honestly, there's some people, and a very rare few, depending on your genetics and your metabolic rate and all the rest of it, that fitness competing and that life is easier to attain. But women in general, it goes against our biology. Okay. When you have estrogen and progesterone, your body holds on to body fat. It's what we need to procreate. So what Peterson is saying, it goes against everything that biologically we need to have in order to reproduce. And so men are naturally leaner because they have testosterone. They don't have estrogen and they don't have progesterone. So they're meant to be leaner. Women are meant to be softer and rounder and curvier. But
and be able to
unfortunately,
carry a baby.
yes, and be able to carry a baby. But go back to the 1960s when Twiggy came out and all hell broke loose, and it has never changed, because through then, 70s, the 80s, then it became the fitness magazines and everybody had to be toned and muscular, and it's never left. Then you move to the 90s where you've got the heroin chic. And this is, again, we are trying to change. And what Sports Illustrated was trying to do is change modern day beauty to something that is not this box, this stupid box that we all have to fit into these stupid fucking measurements. We wouldn't have the eating disorders that we have, and the number of them, especially in cisgender females, particularly, even though it's happening with everyone, but because of the pressure.
Yeah. This says, now that the definition of what's beautiful has been expanded. See, we're not talking, we're going to thing, but actually, why not? We're all, honestly, I have met people that were drop dead gorgeous until they opened their mouth. And then no. And then people that were average looking, and then you have a conversation with them, and they have, I'm not trying to say, oh, the person, they have a great personality. When people are dating, they know that means they're not that attractive, whatever. But their personality makes them so attractive.
Yep. Well, that's why charismatic people in general, right? Why, and especially with women in particular. Women are drawn more to intellectuality and intellectualism than they are physical, whatever. So this actually says that too. Men are very visual, right? So Sports Illustrated was created particularly for men. But another fact that Peterson goes off on is, and you'll see because she's going to play it, is the fact that you have to be fit and you have to be athletic. And nobody knows that woman can't run 10K or bench press 180 pounds just because she doesn't typically look. We've created that stereotype and that narrative that you have to look this way in order to be the definition of fit. I can tell you from experience and all the research that these women that are in fitness magazines and they're the epitome of unhealthy. They are not fit.
Not only that, the visceral
run 10K, they're not eating.
The visceral fat around your organs is way more important than what you see, than the fat that we see. I don't remember what it's called now. I'm totally drawing a blank.
Adipose fat. Yeah.
But the fat that's around your organs. So there are some skinny people that are not fit.
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
At
like
all,
thin people that are not fit. Like if the definition of fitness has to be that somebody can go run a 10K marathon, or sorry, I'm Canadian, so I go on kilometers, not miles.
Well, we do 5K and 10K.
Right, 10K miles, whatever. Same, like that can, or they can bench press an incredible, insane amount. So our definition of what athleticism and what fit is skewed and messed up too. This is where Sports Illustrated is trying to change that narrative. So let's go back and continue to watch some of this.
I mean, if you look at weightlifters, like competitive in the Olympics, they're huge.
Yeah, I know.
They're huge.
Yeah, they're muscle, and muscle weighs more than fat.
Well, theoretically, muscle takes up less room. It weighs the same amount. So you're going to have a pound of fat and a pound of muscle. Pound of fat will be like this. A pound of muscle
that's exactly what it is. Is that
Okay, let's see. Excuse me. If I replay the end of it, sorry, because I moved it. So just bear with me.
It's okay.
Sports Illustrated, it's also highlighting a kind of athleticism in body type. And that's a very specific form of beauty. You have to be young, you have to be female, generally, you have to be extremely athletic, you have to be shapely in a very particular way, and that would be with a waist to hip ratio of 0.68, because that's what's been established cross-culturally as ideal from the perspective of male sexual interest, let's say, but that's also associated with fertility.
Yeah.
And so it's a marker that has a biological basis. And so even if you're a very beautiful woman, you're hard pressed to be beautiful enough to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated for the swimsuit issue. And so it's a pinnacle achievement of sorts. And it's focused on a very idealized and specific form of beauty. And that's obviously exclusionary. It's obviously exclusionary. It excludes everyone, right? And it does that to highlight a kind of ideal, and that's a particular ideal of beauty. And there are some cultural boundaries around that. So you could say, well, it's a westernized form of beauty. It's like, yeah, and you can point to Rubens' paintings of more plump women and say, well, there's an exception. It's like, great. You think you're a genius for finding that exception. Good for you. You know the Rubens painting, like more power to you. But that doesn't mean anything at all about the universality of images of beauty. And so
You know, him saying that Sports Illustrated, you know, they're trying to be inclusionary, whatever, when they're very exclusionary, because none of us will be a part of that. I sit here and I think, who hurt you?
Yeah, he's
Who hurt you?
Yeah. There's been a couple. Dr. Gabor Mate, who is a well-known medical doctor, he's an MD in Vancouver and is world-renowned for addiction and trauma. And he was interviewed by somebody and asked what his thoughts were on Dr. Jordan Peterson. And he said he's a very angry man.
Yeah.
I see a lot of his stuff. There is a lot of anger within.
Like, not everybody is going to meet that. The whole world can't meet that standard.
So again, but that's exactly the point is that no, we can't. And that's why it creates the problems it creates.
Exactly.
So you're making a very good point, Dr. Peterson, because yes, it is unrealistic and nobody can really meet those. So why are we doing that? Why are we? Because that's what we do as human beings and part of the human condition. You know, unfortunately, we do compare ourselves. So why are we creating such unrealistic standards?
And then when we try to broaden those horizons and open those standards, oh my God, now you're being inclusionary.
Yeah, but this is it more? He says it's not personal, but this is personal for him.
This seems very
he's so full of shit, because if you watch him, right, it is personal for him. He doesn't like the idea of change. He doesn't like the idea of what has been a men's magazine from the beginning, for the most part, where women are being objectified, okay, for their sexuality. And he doesn't like the idea that they've put a woman on there that doesn't fit the ideal of what we've created as a culture for the past how many decades
of what men have created.
Yeah, men
as a culture. Yeah, exactly.
And women feeling like we have to attain that, right?
And how dare we feel empowered by better, a broader representation of women on the cover of Sports Illustrated? How dare we feel that empowered?
Yeah. And here's another point. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
I did a TikTok video in retaliation to this. And I said, he's such a dinosaur in the way that he thinks, and he's such a misogynist. But really, there's a lot of men out there who don't find fit and thin women attractive. They like women that have more meat on their bones, and they are attracted, sexually drawn to women that don't look like women on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So for him to make a generalized, stereotypical comment like all men, that's bullshit.
And if he wants to talk about it's culture bound as well, well, yeah, that's true. Because there are cultures that love food and it's surrounding food
Well,
and
and men are very
beautiful,
much drawn to
beautiful.
bigger women. Yeah,
Yes.
again, it is our American, or I should say, again, North American, European
Yeah.
ideologies that
Yeah.
have really messed us up. So,
Okay. And
The cover bothered me a lot because it was a cheap manipulation of something that had been working very well for Sports Illustrated. It was also an insistence that all of a sudden this non-athletic body type is as beautiful as the standard swimsuit.
okay, I stopped it there because he does go on, and I didn't get a chance. I thought I got it, but I didn't at the very end, where he does talk about that. Yes, genetically, people have a harder time losing weight. And let me see if I can find it. I'm so sorry. I thought I had it, but then when I was going through everything, sorry, I thought I was more prepared.
no, that's okay. But Jody, we could go through most of it, because there is some other points that he brings up about, not everybody can be a Picasso. And
Yeah.
about the inclusivity part, because I think it's important that we talk about that.
I thought I had that, but I might have deleted it. Hang on.
Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So obviously,
When I was getting rid of stuff to make sure that I had everything in order, I thought I had 3 videos and I only had 2. So,
that space, it would cause as much trouble as it did.
okay, let's see. Come on.
Not everyone's Picasso.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, you do have it. Yeah.
They're not on her side.
Okay. Sorry, guys. Hey, it's not a podcast if I don't do something, either like hit myself in the head with a wine bottle accidentally.
Hey, this is why it's so great, is because we're just real people doing real
Yes.
stuff.
And I thought I was queued up, but I wasn't. So,
No, you're
Oh,
good.
well.
This is good.
Beautiful as the standard swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated. And it's not as athletic, and it's not as healthy. And that's that. And it's also not arbitrary. And so the whole thing is a lie. And then it's a lie that's a manipulation of that young woman. Now, she partakes in that because she participates in it, but it's still, they're not on her side. They're exploiting her, as far as I'm concerned. And she may be participating in that exploitation, but they're still exploiting her. So don't pull any moral stunts on me because you're irritated about my opinion about the Sports Illustrated cover, when it's bloody clear to anybody with eyes that was manipulative in 20 different ways.
He's such a kind-hearted person that he doesn't want her being manipulated either.
Yeah, but he does no, but this is where he's completely condescending and contradicting himself, because
And he's not kind-hearted. I meant that.
He's not kind-hearted. He is, this is exactly him manipulating. This is what is so unbelievably backhanded and completely condescending as to what he's actually saying. Is this, he's making this point that she's being exploited. You like to exploit women, dude. You like Sports Illustrated with being the rare beauty and the really unrealistic and fit models to look at, because this is what men like. So you are part of that exploitation, but now you're going to say she's being exploited. Now you have a problem with it. Well, then go back and go, you're going against everything that you just said.
Well, what it sounds like to me, honestly, my interpretation is that she's being exploited means everybody's laughing at her. Everybody's laughing. That's a joke that she's on there. Nobody's taking that cover seriously. And that she's the butt of a joke because she doesn't meet the beauty standards.
Yeah, according to him.
According to him.
According to him.
He's laughing at her.
Because that's the way he thinks, and that's the way that everybody thinks.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. But this is why some people like Peterson, is because they're like, he just says it how it is. He says what people are thinking,
We're thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which, again, how narrow-minded are you? Because you don't like change, right? You don't like the idea of your whatever that's been, and it's all men in particular that are thinking this way.
And I'm also not willing to sacrifice these ideals for inclusiveness. It's like, no, not everyone's a genius. No, not everyone's Picasso. No, not everyone's young and healthy. And no, not everyone is a Sports Illustrated swimsuit model, period. And fuck you if you don't like it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Not
So-
everybody is a swimsuit model. So put the ones that I like the looks of on the
Mhm.
cover. And if
Yeah.
you don't like it,
Fuck you.
fuck you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is probably the most controversial interview Peterson has ever done. And when I first saw this come out, I was just like, oh my God, you are such a dinosaur. And exactly, you're a psychologist, for God's sakes. Where the hell were you in, again, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, the mental health issues that has been created because of our socio-cultural dynamics and what's happened. And again, if you go back and you look at the research and you look at a lot of people having eating disorders, and it's strictly like there was some saints, right? Nuns and women who full-blown anorexia, and there was no appearance, there was no magazines, there was no social influence, there was nothing. They just literally had the obsessive compulsive part of the disorder. Okay. And there are rare circumstances like that, but you can't say, again, with our cultural influences, that this has become an epidemic of issues within so many people across the board, and especially women.
And you think about, okay, mental health issues have a biopsychosocial component to them.
Yeah.
So you can be predisposed, you can have the genetic disposition, but if all of the factors of nature and nurture and all that, and you have parents that are understanding, sensitive to it, so they try their best not to expose you to it, if you will, hopefully you're not doomed and destined to get it.
Nope.
You just have to be mindful of the biopsychosocial factors. And sadly, you've got the bio factors, you got the psycho factors. Now the social factors, they are going to outweigh with social media.
Absolutely.
The bio and that's going to kick the bio
Right
more
up
than
there.
the psycho, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
You know, growing up, there was 17 magazine when I was young, and some other magazines for teen magazine and stuff. And they had people on the cover. And from what I can recall, they were, because it was supposed to be teenagers. So they weren't the, big boobs, little waist. They were kind of post-pubescent teenagers. Or if they were still like 15 or 16, they weren't, Brooke Shields, I think, was the first one to like really be sexy, if you will. So there wasn't this, it wasn't as in your face. And I think with social media, it is in your face, because at the same time as you have body positivity, and you have people that are pushing it, and even like Dove puts out commercials now, and a lot of other places, Ulta Beauty.
Yeah,
it's changed a lot.
Lingerie, you can't find a site now that doesn't have considered
plus size. However, sadly, the power of social media, when you have teenage girls, they're not watching those commercials and going, oh, okay. They're watching social media when people are like, fuck fat people. And not in a good way.
No, absolutely. Or fads and people going off all these different things, right? Like TikTok's pretty good about banning anything around people with eating disorders and talking about it. Like you'll get kicked off. Like they ban a lot of those videos and people promoting eating disordered type behavior. But just to and the whole thing with Peterson and what he says in the last little bit, this whole inclusivity thing, Sports Illustrated wasn't doing it for an inclusivity matter or from perspective. It wasn't, again, if we're talking about inclusivity, like everybody wins a ribbon at a race and there's no loser. Okay, I understand your point of our society becoming too inclusive, because then we're not teaching children to deal with difficult emotions, right? Such as not everybody can win the race. Not everybody's going to be good at math. Not everybody's going to be, again, you have strengths and you have weaknesses, and that's just what make us individual people. I understand this whole inclusivity thing is got some major cons to it, but that's not what this is about. This woman isn't sitting there crying and being like, I want to be on the cover too, and how come nobody thinks I'm beautiful? That's not it. It's Sports Illustrated understanding that we've really fucked up society, and our culture, excuse my French.
Mhm.
But we need to go back and we need to make it so, because again, the impact of this, like Dr. Larman has said, is more of a environmental and an issue than it really is a biopsychosocial or genetic issue, right? There's those components, but the social aspect overrides that. And us as a society, we need to change it. We need to change it because, again, it is detrimental to people's mental health. And again, with epigenetics and us changing and evolving as humans, if you look at trauma, right? I specifically work with trauma. And I actually recently was just listening to an audiobook on it started before you, basically saying that your genes and you're predisposed to your parents, grandparents' trauma, you can actually behave and have issues and mental health issues that are related to that trauma that you never actually went through based on your genes.
Mhm.
So again, right? Our society needs to change. And that's what Sports Illustrated was trying to do, is change what we consider modern day beauty.
I
Okay.
find it so interesting. Not surprising, not in a surprising way at all whatsoever. But the fact that they're not really coming down on, or they didn't really come down that much on like Dove commercials. They're not really saying much about Ulta Beauty because they don't care. Men don't sit and watch Dove and Ulta Beauty commercials, but
No.
men buy Sports Illustrated.
Mhm.
So it's like, hey, this is something that we are looking at. Why are you changing it for putting on women on the cover? One, sadly, a lot of men are so delusional and they think that these women would be attracted to them in real life.
Oh, I know, it's hilarious. Like you look at the guy that doesn't look anything like these women look, and they're not the epitome of what they considered fitness or healthy or whatever, but they exploit and they, demonize or they objectify because women are just objects, right? Again,
and if you think this is exploitative, Sports Illustrated, like you said, why are you participating in it then?
and why are you participating? Exactly.
Because
So as much as Peterson says in the beginning, this isn't a personal thing. He's trying to speak as being sort of a general, his general perspective that society thinks this in general. This is a very conceptualized amongst society concept or perspective. It's his. It's garbage because my own therapist, who's a man, can't stand Peterson and said that is the most bogus thing I've ever heard. That's his perspective. And he is full of crap when he says that he's speaking on behalf of the population.
there is a guy on TikTok. We were going to have him on the podcast. Unfortunately, a lot of stuff was going on at the same time. So I had to cancel it for the time being. But he also did a whole podcast on how fat is now supposed to be the new fit, and it's also, I don't want to get political, so this is not me saying it. It's the liberals trying to make everything inclusive, including being fat.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was a fitness model. He says this. This video is about an article that was published by self.com and is titled "What the Future of Fitness Really Looks Like." And it's got a picture of this plus size black model. Her name is Beth Garabrandt. Okay. This is his transcript. And she's doing some sort of yoga pose or gymnastics or something, right? But the premise of this article, well, there's a couple. One of the premises of this article is that being fat, being plus size, and being happy and positive about being plus size is the future of fitness. And no, it's not. I'm telling you right now, that is not the future of fitness. Unless you want to start changing the definition of fitness, which the left, again, this is his political, not mine. The left is very that's sort of their motive, changing the definition, changing the language in order to fit their narrative. And this is one of their narratives.
Interesting. I think this is a lot of fearful men speaking, again, misogyny, about not liking change. They don't like the idea and they don't understand the implications of what we've created as a society, what men have created as a society and their expectations on women. They don't understand eating disorders. And, I had many people on my TikTok retaliation that were very much in support of Peterson, telling me that I had no idea what I was talking about. I know you're just, and I said, you know, there was one gentleman in particular, and I just said, I'm going to pray for you. And I'm not going to go into religious stuff here because I'm not but I'm just going to say, I pray that if you're not already a parent to a daughter, or even a son for that matter, or a child in particular, that you are going to be standing in a hospital room begging the doctors to intravenously and nasogastrically feed them because they are fighting for their life because they have an eating disorder. And I'm telling you, when you are dealing with anorexia, this is where even in some cases, bulimia goes so far that they become restrictive and they do not eat. The phobia and the fear is so bad that I pray for you that you are not that dad begging the doctors to save your child's life because of your ignorant, stupid beliefs around what women should look like.
I have seen some overweight, according to him, what did he call her? Plus size, fat and plus size, doing yoga and dance and stuff. And I'm like, damn.
Seriously, your weight and your proportions. I know some people who do gymnastics and different sports that require proportions to be aerial, like airborne, would argue with me, but I've seen I've watched a ballerina that can do all the same moves. Yeah. That is not considered ballerina size. I used to be a dancer. Another thing, I had all the perfect storm to wind up with anorexia, an abusive parent, mom, and you name it. But that can do all the same. And she's not considered what all the dancers say you have to be these proportions to be able to do a pirouette or jeté or it's such garbage. Again, that woman on the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine, who knows if she can run 10K? My best friend is 380 pounds. And by definition, she goes into her doctor's office. She has no diabetes. She has no heart problems. She has no hypertension. She has no blood pressure issues. She's the epitome of health. Now, our doctors are quite shocked because it's like, you should be. But if you look at her genetics, her whole history comes from what we consider as society morbidly obese within her family, aunts, right? But by definition, right? She's not unhealthy, oddly enough.
And see, that's the thing too, is you can't, just because you look at them now, I don't know if they have it up in Canada. I imagine that they do. The My 600-Pound Life or something like that.
We
and
we
the 1,000-pound sisters and things like that. And okay, I am not, and it's not like, ew, gross, disgusting. I feel sad for these people because their life is impacted. They can't get out of bed.
No, they can't.
Get in a car.
Again, the psychology, and Dr. Larman, you would probably know more about this, but my friend is actually on a wait list to have gastric bypass surgery. And it's not an overeating issue that she has. She doesn't eat great foods. And yes, of course, not healthy choices necessarily, but most people look at her and think that she has massive overeating or compulsive overeating issues. Not even a little bit. Again, she's genetically predisposed. And it is just coming down to her venti white chocolate mocha in the morning and the wrong choice, but she doesn't sit there and just eat all day long. And I've traveled with her, I've done things, but it is again, horribly sad when people are of that weight. And this is just perspective for those of you that have never really thought about it much. It is overwhelming and daunting for a person there to think about the amount of work they have to do to lose weight. It is hard for anybody to lose weight. And I mean anybody for that matter. Then, and then you take a person who's my 600-pound life, or above 200 and whatever pounds to lose weight. Where do you start? They're so defeated before they even begin. Now, as a recovered anorexic who used to do the yo-yoing, okay, so I would bounce. After my eating disorder, I gained a morbid amount of weight back. I could stare at a bag of carrots and I would gain 5 pounds. I had no metabolism. My body did not work. It didn't matter how healthy. I gained it all back. I went down to 76 pounds when I was 20. I was nasogastrically fed. and almost died. I had a heart arrhythmia from it. And then I bounced back up. I probably worked at the worst place in the world. I was a server at Earl's at 20, where I was around stunningly thin, beautiful high school and college age women. And I became the heaviest of them there. I went up to 160 pounds, and I'm only 4.5. So I'm not very tall.
I don't know why I thought you were taller. I'm 5'2".
No,
but I
yeah,
thought you were
right.
taller.
No,
Taller than
I'm,
me, but I
I'm,
thought-
yeah, but I'm little in comparison, right? But then again, and I got to the point where I was so uncomfortable, I went back to the gym, even at 160 pounds. And to most people, they probably laugh and think that that's nothing. But from somebody that had such phobia and body image issues, the thought of me starting at the gym to lose all that weight all over again was so overwhelming. Even at that weight, I couldn't imagine a person who is considered morbidly obese. And where do you begin? Where do you start?
The sad thing is too, I've seen, okay, and this is, I'm not, this is going to come out not nice, but that's not what I mean. But I worked in a grocery store, and when you go shopping, I have seen, and this is not necessarily, yes, it's genetic, but it's also, this is the nature nurture part of it, the environmental part of it, where I would see families with the parents that were obese, and then the kids are big, and you look in their cart and there's not a nutritious piece of food in there.
No.
And it's like, oh, I wish
Yeah.
I used to, because this was what I wanted to do before I wasn't able to, and my life trajectory changed and everything. But I was a weight loss counselor, and that's what got me into psychology. And I used to go with people, and we'd go shopping, and we'd look at ingredients, and we'd look at the healthier choices. Like it was around Thanksgiving, and I went with this lady, and she would buy sticks of butter that she put in her turkey, and she was obese. And I'm like, okay, here's things that aren't going to feel like you're cutting out. Why do you put the butter in your turkey? Like a whole thing of butter in your turkey? She goes, because my mom always did that. That's okay. Why don't we try not? And then you tell me how the turkey is. And if it's bad, go back to doing what you're doing, whatever. And she told me later, she's like, I didn't even taste the difference.
No. Yeah. Again, I will say, no, this is just another perspective, being Canadian, okay, versus the US. Now, our food guides are a little bit different, but our portions are a quarter of what the US portions are. So when I was just in Disneyland, okay, I just took my kids there. What broke my heart was, if you looked at the average American family, again, obese parents, obese kids. And it's no fault of their own. It's become a cultural thing where portion sizes are so, and when, again, your body adjusts to it, and then that becomes your norm, right? And it's just what it is, but not from a look perspective, or it's more of a health issue, because the increase of diabetes, heart disease, and all of the implications from being, if you consider yourself, there is implications to obesity. Okay. In cases in Canada, if anytime you go to a restaurant and eat out, the portions are literally a quarter. Cause I remember when I worked at Earl's years ago, our first flagship store that we opened in the US was in Arizona. And we had all of the US team come up to our testing kitchen, because I worked at the flagship restaurant. And they're like, yeah, see, we need to quadruple the size of the portions. These wouldn't fly in the US. People would be hungry.
Yeah.
And that's right there.
It's again, if you're predisposed and then you're given a lot of food, it is hard. One thing that I do for myself and my son, I use small plates. Because that trick actually does work. It doesn't go in your big plate to suddenly go to small plate, but you kind of move to a small plate. And then if my plate is full and I finish it, I feel like I've eaten a whole plate.
Well, that's just it. The deception, right? And what we see. But if you go globally around the world, the US is the only country in the world that has the obesity problem. And it really does come down to portion control. That's the only reason, but it shouldn't be about what we look like. It's about health in general, right? We're talking from a health perspective here, not at all about, again, my best friend, who, again, not necessarily the best health choices, but she really is predisposed to obesity genetically. But if you look at the US as a population and as a country, they're the only ones that really struggle with a mass obesity ratio in comparison to every other country in the world. And that comes down to portion control.
And the sad thing is you get people here, and research has shown this. You get people here from, say, Asia. First generation, they start to eat a little less healthy. By second generation, they're on par with Americans. And it's sad because you go anywhere and you can eat a lot more because they're smaller portions. And I don't mean eat more at one sitting, but you can eat. I know that like when we go on a cruise and the portion that they put on the plate, it's a lot smaller. And then you see people ordering more than one plate. It's like, because what they have on the plate is not big enough. And it's like, but it really is. It really is. And I feel for people, but there are people, I am very hard on, I'm very self-deprecating. And my therapist had said to me once, when I went to therapy after I left my ex, we were talking and I was talking about, oh, I got a date again. And oh my God, the way I look. And he goes, do you think, he goes, I think there's some body dysmorphia going on there. And I'm like, it's body dysmorph-ish, because if it's true, it's not body dysmorphia. And he's like, it's body dysmorphia. And the thing is, I have been told that so much and I don't want to believe it. Yeah. But I have to believe it. But I always think to myself, we never see ourselves the way other people see us.
No, we don't.
And I wish that there was like, if somebody showed me like 5 silhouette or 5 bodies with no heads and the same clothes and asked me which one was me. I wonder if I would get it right.
Yeah, that's interesting, because that would, would you?
I really wonder.
Get it? Yeah. Again, I have a friend that's got really severe body dysmorphia. Like her parents in general, she doesn't see herself. She sees other women as being far more attractive than her. And if you look at what you're looking at, it's like not even close. She doesn't see what other people see. That's dysmorphia in itself, right? But
there are people, like I have a friend who's very overweight and my sister's heavy, and they can rock clothes. Yeah. It's like, damn, we're dressed almost in the same thing, because my friend and I went out and I'm like,
but you see yourself so you see yourself differently than everybody else again. And we're just terrible about picking out our heart. We're so hard on ourselves. Right. And this is again, why the ideal beauty and our modern day beauty has to change, because again, you go back to Rubenesque, and even before then, look at Marilyn Monroe and look at the women of the 50s and the 40s. I mean, men weren't attracted to beanpoles and women who were super, super, super thin. And they're
really still not. Guys will tell you they don't want bone.
No, they don't. No, they don't want bone. Not at all. But again, once this eating disorder and this body dysmorphia kicks in, it's where it's ingrained, right? It is so, there's the good food and bad food. So when I went through my own counseling for my own, distorted eating patterns or whatever, there was no such thing as good food or bad food. Food was food, right? Food is food, sugar is sugar, calories. Again, when you've had a severe eating disorder, I don't own a scale. I don't count calories. It's the things that once you have this wave that you can't, because it turns into an addiction, right? It goes back into this, you become obsessed and you become, and at one point I wanted to become an eating disorders counselor, and my therapist looked at me and she says, don't you dare. She says, it's too triggering. It can always throw you back and pull you back into, especially when you've been down that road. Now I'm 20 plus years out, so I probably would be okay. And I do work with some clients with eating disorder issues, but nobody with severe anorexia. It's just it's too much, right? And they often need more psychiatric help, and hospitalization and refeeding programs and nutritionists and dietitians and different things, right? So it goes a little bit beyond my scope of practice per se, but these are the implications. Is why our society needs to change. It's again why we brought Jordan Peterson on here, and it's just so disheartening and disturbing coming from a clinical psychologist. His perspective, and it's gross. It's really awful.
And when people and then this guy, it's the left's agenda to make body positivity and everybody inclusive. It's like, Okay, that shouldn't be
No,
any political party's agenda at all.
no. Again,
And-
we're talking about psychiatric disorders that can be created from society's ideology. If eating disorders and body dysmorphia wasn't a thing, we wouldn't even be having this discussion right now.
Exactly. And you know, I know going back to the 50s, 60s, 70s, probably the end of time or when it started, there were people with eating disorder issues.
There were.
Because of the genetic component.
I've read the literature, there are, but it was
Yeah.
so rare and it was very few. You didn't find people with anorexia nervosa back in the 1940s and 50s the way that you do now, or even bulimia for that matter. It just didn't exist. And if it did, it was strictly the genetic components that were applying, right?
And people ate healthier foods.
They did.
People
Less
ate,
processed.
people ate to live because food wasn't as available as it is now.
More the scarcity.
But I think even, let's just say, because I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I believe that the more connected that we are with social media, with everybody from all over the world being able to communicate really easily, and all the different social medias, even like WhatsApp and things like that. I don't use WhatsApp, but I know that they have different channels and groups and stuff. I don't know. They do it for a lot more than what I was thinking that they did. But, and Reddit and all of this, where body shaming, even people that will say, oh, body positivity, girl, why are you wearing that? You know, cover that up. And I'm not talking about, you know, your boobs, whatever, but, or, oh, why would that person ever go out in public looking like that? You need to kind of diet. Why would we still have diets? Okay, that right there, diets do not work. It is a lifestyle. Don't deprive yourself of stuff, because when you deprive yourself, what happens? You want it really badly. By the time
it just you yo-yo. I did that for years.
And your body has a point where it's the most comfortable at. And they did a study on the Biggest Loser people, and most of them gained it back and had a way harder time losing it. Doing exactly what they did to lose it the first time.
Yeah, exactly.
Because your body does not, it
has a baseline that it's comfortable at, right? And so again, why aren't we just going by that baseline? And why are we trying to conform to something that just really isn't realistic for many different people? Right?
And when somebody manages to make the cover of Swimsuit Illustrated or self doing yoga and stuff like that, if we as a society praised that, especially the people like I would bet that, I don't know, but this guy, Dr. Peterson, I don't even want to say that, but would be like, no, we should all be who we are, be body positive, unless you're fat. Then
no, I don't even think he would say that, because to him it's not realistic. He thinks that society is the way that it is, and this is what we've been, and he doesn't like the change. He's on his butt's on the roaster because he doesn't like all the inclusive language in Canada, and he's against he's all for free speech, which I have to say that I agree. But as a clinical psychologist, there's limitations. You belong to an association and you have expectations in your professional career as a psychologist, a mental health professional at the elite status, that you don't just get to say whatever the you want.
No,
I'm sorry, but you don't. And that's what the board is holding him up against, because he's such all about free speech, and he's so right-wing versus left that he doesn't like in the university, again, having to use him or non-binary and LGBTQ plus and language. He thinks it's BS. And it's just that he refuses to use it. So he's offended a lot of his students who fall under the LGBTQ plus, who do identify as non-binary or transgender or whatever. And he doesn't like it. He doesn't want to have to change language. He thinks it's crap. And so he's against that too. And that he's been scrutinized for that.
But he has lost a lot of weight, supposedly. He was overweight at one point.
Which is exactly why this is personal for him, and he's projecting. It's pure projection. If you look at Psychology 101, anybody that has anger and is bringing up an issue, a lot of it, I can say that for myself, like when it comes to weight, it's projection, right? It's, again, my mother still will make comments about what I eat. And, oh God, I don't know how you can eat that. And it's so gross. And, bleh, you know, like, cause I tend to eat a lot of fat. I like it. I like butter. And, you know, and I'm very much against the whole good food, bad food thing. And I have my routine and I do my thing, but she's got her own issues, right? So she, again, she's just projecting. She does it to my aunt. It's just projection. So if he had weight issues, this all comes down to not changing the narrative because doesn't like change. And this is triggering for him. And he's projecting his own crap.
But it's just, to me, like, even we did a podcast on Lizzo, and she's supposedly very body positive. Everything is body positivity, except for the whole scandal that came out of her with her dancers. I think a lot of people are all for body positivity, but don't be fat about it.
I hate that word. I don't even like that word. I don't like to use that word at all.
Which one? Fat?
I can't, it bothers me. Like I hear anybody using, oh, that person's so that it's, yeah, it is just not a good word.
Mm-hmm.
And body positivity, again, it's none of your business. Do not comment on somebody's appearance around weight. If somebody has lost weight and you've noticed it, say they look great. The end. Do not say, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. You look so amazing. Because for somebody who's had eating disorder issues or body dysmorphia, what happens is that we just run with that and we go, oh, great. So you must have thought I was a fat pig before. So now I look better. And now I have to hold on to this ideal and I can't lose it because then I'm not going to be accepted by you, or you're going to think I'm ugly or not acceptable or not good enough. This is exactly what it comes down to. Please.
I have a story that has stuck with me. One of my best friends, and oh my God, he's one of my longest friends. When my husband died, he would come over and make sure I ate, because that's the one thing I didn't care. So he would bring me food and stuff. And I remember one day he comes home and he goes, you are like really small. Like you're too small. And I'm like, oh, so you're saying I was bigger before? And he goes, no, you were always small, but then you got smaller and now you're really small. And I'm like, so I was bigger then. And he's like, that's not what I'm saying. And I'm like, it is what you're saying. He goes, no, you're really small. I said, dude, you can't win this one.
No.
Trust me.
And
it's already like, he meant no harm at all. But it was like,
but the sad thing is because we have this distorted perception, and this is a distortion. This is us. And it's not that person, because that person was just literally concerned for her well-being.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as soon as you make any comment in reference to that, we run with it and in not a good way. And it doesn't matter what you say, we're going to take the negative. It's kind of like the person, and not to compare us to have people who have like delusional or paranoid personality disorder, where they're like, no matter what you say, they make a negative out of it. It's not like, but when it comes to weight, it's so unbelievably triggering that, again, if you're going to comment on somebody's appearance, just say you look great. Do not comment on weight loss, because anybody who has struggled with losing weight or is in the midst of it, or unless they make a comment themselves and say, oh, I've lost all this weight, and they're looking for accolades and they're looking for compliments and they're looking to boost their self-esteem, that's fine. But wait for them to take the lead. Don't take it upon yourself that you think it's a positive comment when you say, oh my God, you're wasting weight, you look great, because then that person is just going to go, great. That confirms everything that I thought. I was a fat pig before, gross, and I was awful, and I was too big, and I was unattractive, and now I have to stay this way. Now the pressure's on, because if I go back to the way that I was before, I'm not going to be accepted.
That's why it's been 23 years and I still remember that comment. And again, he was just concerned because I was not eating anything. But I remember that little dialogue back and forth of then I was bigger. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, you weren't. And all I can think about, and I think about it to this day, and I try not to, as a psychologist, I'm like, okay, use your cognitive, use yourself, so now I'm back to, or maybe bigger, but I'm definitely bigger than I was at that point in time.
Right.
So then that makes me big. And it's like, I have to logically play the game, but that's what I mean by also being in remission is like, I have to not be like, I can't eat. I have to stay at what I was, because that was really unhealthy and it was a really bad time.
Yes, exactly. But the problem with eating disorders, unlike alcoholism or opiate addictions or any sort of substance, you can't stop eating food.
People have asked me so many times, I've quit smoking, I've stopped drinking. Why is this so hard? And I said, because you don't need alcohol to live. You don't need cigarettes to live. You need food to live.
To sustain life. So again, it becomes an addiction, right? Any sort of bulimia or anorexia or eating disorder, binge eating, whatever it is a coping mechanism. It's a coping strategy. That's why it's related to obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety, because when you can't do what makes you feel safe, which is controlling your eating, especially if you have the controlling abusive mother, or you've been bullied, or you've been, and there's an abusive background, and then you've got the genetic component, and then you've got society's crap on top of that, it becomes a compulsive behavior in order to make you feel calm and safe. It is really a coping strategy. The problem is that you can't stop eating because you need to be able to live. It's like you have to have water to hydrate. You can't not have water. So yeah, again, it's something that you're going to have forever. It's just a matter of learning to control it and not have it control you. It's a bit of a paradox, because most anorexics feel in control when they're starving themselves and they're not eating, and they've accomplished the most difficult thing. And it's almost like this sort of satisfactory feeling that you get, that you can do what most people can't do. But the scary part is that it will kill you when you become so psychologically or psychiatrically ill from it, because the less that you eat, the more biologically starving you are, the more ill you get. At 20, my 13-year-old cousin could put sentences together better than I could, because my brain had nothing to feed off of, right? I was eating nothing, absolutely nothing, my cognition, everything went right out the window, right? My organs were dying. That visceral fat you talked around organs, it was all going, and I had major heart arrhythmia because I had no magnesium and potassium in my body. So again, it's dangerous. But then how do you kick it? Because it's not like I can just give up eating. I have to eat to live. Again, this is why society needs to change the narrative. It's dangerous. Okay. And it is causing major, in the influence of social media and now filters and all this crap. And we all fall into it. Again, we are born the way we are born. We have a baseline, right? But us as a society, especially in North America and Europe, have really screwed everything up.
It's really sad, because I read all these things about, look at these celebrities who are aging without any known plastic surgery done. And people will be like, they don't look good. And then in the same sentence, you'll get, or in the same article, whatever, you got people that are like, oh my God, so-and-so had all this plastic surgery. They're unrecognizable.
Have you seen the Barbie movie yet?
Yes.
Okay. The reason why that movie hit most people so hard, and it hit me hard, was because as much as I didn't like to play Barbies when I was a kid, I liked building Lego. I was quite a tomboy, actually, and I liked building things and playing with my friends' G.I. Joes and Hot Wheels and stuff. Yes, I'm aging myself. I got Barbies and I learned how to French braid their hair. That's as far as it went. I didn't play with them, but based on both my parents being very narcissistic when it came to their appearance, and had their own, both of them, body dysmorphic and eating disordered issues, right? Fell into that trap, and a loss of sense of self. And the reason why that movie hit so hard was that, again, the pressure on women in general. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. It doesn't matter what you do, then you're to this, then you pick a bunch of women off, or men don't like it, or there's a certain group of men that. So if you age naturally, then you're disgusting. Why aren't you doing Botox and keeping yourself up? But then if you do that, you're too plastic. And then if you do this, then you're not this. And if you do this, you're not this. If you're too thin and you're too beautiful, women hate you. If you're not this, you're not this, then you're not keeping up with society. Like, again, you're screwed. You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Cynthia Nixon did the best speech. It was sort of like a little skit or whatever called, what was it? Be a lady, they say, or they said. And anybody that's knows this or who doesn't know this, watch it. Because again, she talks about it basically like they did in the Barbie movie. Women are pretty much damned if you do. If you're too sexual, you're a slut. If you're not sexual enough, you're a freeze. If you're too beautiful, you're hated by women. If you're not beautiful enough, men don't like you, or you're not accepted, or you're not considered. It's just, you're screwed. So again, Peterson, where were you when you were doing your PhD in all the psychiatric illnesses due to our society based on body image and appearance?
I tell people, I say this is like my catchphrase thing to all of my clients, is as long as you are not doing anything illegal, immoral, unethical. And when I say immoral, I don't mean the Bible immoral. I don't mean that. I just mean immoral,
we won't get into that topic. That's very
illegal, immoral, unethical, or you're not harming someone intentionally. And if you find out you're harming someone unintentionally, then it's intentional if you don't stop.
Yeah.
Be your true and genuine self that you want to be, especially those that have been in toxic relationships that have sadly, not intentionally, but we have kind of morphed into the person that person wanted us to be, not the person that we are. When you find yourself, and talking about society and eating and eating disorders and body image and all of that stuff, when you come out of a toxic relationship, and this is a whole other podcast, but finding that person of who you are and who you love and your true and genuine self. And again, fuck the people that don't like it because it doesn't fit their standards. If you are not doing any of what I said, illegal, immoral, unethical, or harming someone intentionally, be your true and genuine self. Have fun. We get this life
once,
this very one time. And I don't care if you believe in reincarnation, that's still not the same life. You get this life once. And living is serious. Life shouldn't be.
No. Experiences. On your deathbed, are you going to be that person that's like, oh, I really wish I got that extra vial of Botox and I really wish I ran that extra mile so I could have been thin? No. You're going to be like, why the fuck did I waste my entire life worrying so much about what everybody else thought and what I looked like and whether I'd be attractive or accepted by it? It is just so sad. And I heard a song the other day by Kobe Calais called Try. And it is the most beautiful song. And it is all about, it's put your makeup on, get your hair done, curl your hair, run that extra mile so they like you. Acceptance. And it is
a couple years old, right?
Yeah,
it's
it is a couple years old.
Yes.
And I hadn't heard it before. It's so weird. And I was like, oh my God, does this hit close to home? Right? Again, go back. My dad made a comment not too long ago, actually, ironically, because he's so oblivious, but bless his heart, he means well. All this plastic surgery and shit and tummy tuck live issues. Why can't people just say, once upon a time we didn't have that? I said, I know. You just had to age gracefully. But now we live in a world of everybody has to continue to look like Barbie, or that's what we should look like. And it's absolutely ridiculous. And people actually had to like you for you. And it had to go beyond your appearance and intellectuality and your personality and carrying on a conversation. I had a client the other day and they said they were so caught up. He's from Florida and, everybody down there, Miami and looking, and he's like, oh, I'm so attracted to a certain type of woman, blonde and beautiful. And I don't feel like I'm attractive. And I'm like, if you were the guy that felt like you had the self-esteem to attract all the beautiful women and you could have your pick, what do you think would keep you there in that relationship and that relationship functional and going? And he couldn't answer the question. And I said, what is the one thing do you think that would keep this relationship functional and going and for you to want to stay in it? Is it going to be their looks? Is it going to be what they do for a living? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, they have to be interesting.
Mhm.
I said, they have to be, that person has to captivate your attention in a
Mhm.
way that keeps them interesting, because really, when we get older and all the looks go, no matter what you do and how much crap you get done, it's not going to be the same. That person is going to have to keep you there because they're your best friend and you find them intriguing and interesting and you have really great conversations with them.
And you know what? They're going to remain beautiful. You know, what's interesting is when you see someone and you grow up with someone and they stay attractive to you, or whatever you want to call it, because you're friends and, you know, they're just, you connect. And then there's people that you thought were really great looking, and then you don't see them for another
No.
20 or so years. And
Yeah.
then you meet them again and go, whoa, they've aged.
Yeah.
Well, because it's the personality.
It
and
is.
connection. And I know back when people, oh, they got a good personality, but that means everything.
It does. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and you're only beautiful to that person because you can hold their attention beyond physical beauty. Beauty and the Beast, best fairy tale out there. And it is so true. You take Gaston, who is your typical narcissistic sociopath, full-on narcissistic sociopath. And then you have the Beast, who made a crucial mistake, but he learned, right? And he was beautiful. Belle loved him. She fell in love with him because he was kind and he was genuine and he was nothing to look at, but that beautiful to her, right?
I have seen many an attractive male, and then they spout misogynistic bullshit,
and they
and
become
kind of go,
yep.
yeah. And then you're like, and you know what, honestly, if you really, really think about it, if you, because I will do this sometimes when I'm at the movies or watching TV, my attention span is very short. So I will start looking and going, they have flaws too. They have, you know, one eye is a little smaller than the other, so they're not perfect either. We will find flaws in everybody.
Well, we will, but I find the ones that have so many flaws are the ones that pick out and pick apart other people. And again, this is just projection, right?
Yes.
Here's the guy who doesn't meet any sort of whatever criteria, but is the first person to pick apart women or put them down or think that they don't fit into this category that we should.
I don't do it to pick people apart, though. I do it when people are really attractive, and then I'm like, but you know, there's flaws too.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, well, because you have to. Again, you got to be like,
I got to humanize them.
because we got to humanize them, right? In fact, I really struggle when I go to I don't like to go to the gym. I like to go do yoga and I like to get outside, and I try to stay away from gym because of the amount of narcissism that runs in, especially, and it comes down to insecurity. If you look at 90% of the guys that work out and they're gawking at themselves in the mirror and it's just such a turnoff. It's like, honestly, it's gross. And again, why are we, no, it's not 1985 anymore. Nobody's on muscle magazines. We don't listen. We don't look at shit like that. Like, no. And honestly, just go read a book. It's far more
I
attractive.
always say, though, I am stuck between, and I've said this a lot more since my husband passed, and it kind of hit home. I'm stuck between, eat it, we're going to die anyways. Like you said, you know, on your deathbed, eat it. And then, but my pants are a little tight. I'm always stuck between I want my clothes to fit, but fuck it, we're going to die.
I know, it's that black or white, all or nothing. But here's the deal.
When I talk half of it.
I know. Talking to a dietitian that put it in really good terms. And again, a lot of people who have eating disorders have this sort of really distorted paranoia and phobia that, especially to the anorexic or even the bulimic, that it's the same thing, is that if I eat that, my pants aren't going to fit tomorrow.
Right.
It's physically and physiologically impossible. It doesn't take away the phobia. I used to do that all the time. If I eat that cupcake, I'm going to wake up tomorrow and be fat. I'm not going to be able to fit my pants. And I would literally try on my pants the next day to make sure. And in my head, they were feeling tight. It's all distortion. It's not. And the dietitian had said, you know, it's physiologically impossible. If you go out for that plate of pasta, you can't gain weight from one meal. Yeah. It is not possible. But again, to the person who's built up these phobias. So when you're struggling with stuff like that, right? and you go out and eat it's not doing a damn thing to your body. Not even a little. It can't. It literally, physiologically, scientifically cannot do it. Right? It can't. And if you cut your plate up into quarters, like the portions, right? You have your carbohydrates, like your pasta, your potatoes, whatever, your rice, your vegetables, your meats, and your fats. And if you had your plate and you ate that way, whatever, again, physiologically, within a portion control, we're not talking like a mound of whatever, you can't gain weight. So this good food, bad food, it's all crap, really. Calories are energy. Once upon a time, back in Paleolithic times, we had to hunt for our food. That's why people, for the most part, were pretty lean, because we were constantly moving and we didn't sit down, and we would fast because we would be hunting and gathering our food, and then we'd eat at night. This is where a lot of people think that intermittent fasting is good for cellular rejuvenation and different things. But we don't do that. We live in a very sedentary lifestyle, right? And again, it comes down to moving your body and just portion control. But if you go out for that big pasta dinner and have a lasagna one night, and even once a week, it does nothing to your body.
Well, I hate when people talk about cheat days and cheat meals. It's like, you know what? Honestly, if you learn, and it's not easy, because trust me, I have to do this. I am not kidding, every single day. My relationship with food is not good. I was more of I didn't binge, but I purged. So no matter what I ate, I would then work out for 20 minutes and take a half a box of laxatives and try to vomit. And then if I took another bite, I'd work out another 20 minutes, and that was another laxative and another whatever. So I would eat vegetables, and that was a binge. Wow. And so I'd have to purge. So, but my body, what happened was my body was like, you're not going to lose weight or gain weight. You're staying right where you're at, because we don't know what the hell you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of with bulimia, it's like that though, right? There's a chemical that's released from the brain that it doesn't signal anymore, especially when you go through major binges. Like if you take your average bulimic who can eat an entire fridge full of food, right? And they have no off switch. And then the guilt and the shame is so bad that that's when they have to purge. Mm-hmm. There is no weight loss in particular.
See, I would purge no matter what. The last time I did this though, I will say, after my husband passed away, he passed away in September. I went to a Christmas party in December, and I ate a bunch of vegetables, pretty much vegetables and M&Ms. And then the next day I was like, and I took a whole box of laxatives, and I hadn't eaten. And I was so sick. Like, I was like, oh my God, I never again. And I haven't since then. I haven't, but, it's like, I could not binge. I can't binge. Mm-hmm. But just what would be considered probably normal eating, and then I would purge. So that's what's even harder. Is I was never an eating a lot of food person. So whenever I see things about eating disorders, or like this man, or like Dr. Peterson, or this stupid ass who's talking about how fat people can't be doing yoga, and fat is not the new fit, and you can't be fit if you're fat.
Well, this guy sounds like like he fell off the dump truck, or he's just a fucking dumber than a sack of hammers. It's complete ignorance.
That is a whole other podcast. But I wish that I could get to a point where I didn't, and I'd be lying if I said I did, that I didn't give a shit about this kind of stuff.
You'll never not give a shit. It's in you, unfortunately. It's the same with me. The only time I didn't give a shit was when I had my kids. After I gave birth to all three of my kids, it was the first time I stopped thinking about what I was putting in my mouth. I just didn't care, because I was living for my children. But that's a short-lived period, and then it changes, and then you go back once they've been around for a little while. Never to the extent that it ever did before, but there was never not a time where I'm not thinking about what I'm sticking in my mouth. And especially when I was struggling with my weight, because I did yo-yo quite a bit, and I wasn't watching what I ate, and I wanted to be thin. I was so uncomfortable in my own skin. Every person I saw that was thin, eating all the foods and being like, how do you stay that thin, eating what you're eating, and being so frustrated. Why can't that be me? Why can't that be me? I'm always a person that will have to watch. It's just genetically how I'm.
I was just going to say, because genetics, it won't be you. Like, I am not someone genetically. I have big girls and small hips. So I have a belly.
Mm,
People with big hips have a flat stomach.
that's me. I'm hippie with bum and legs. Like I got J-Lo booty all day long.
I got flat booty.
Yeah. See, I've always wanted the flat because I grew up in the 80s and the 90s and wanted the heroin. I wanted Kate Moss body. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. I had very much hips, bum, cellulite on the legs, but small upper body and small torso, fairly big boobs, but you know what I mean? It's just, I'm
Mhm.
shaped. I am not. Yeah. So again, where you have your stuff and where your body
Yeah,
is.
is where it is. Because I am very big on top. And my ex used to say things like, "Oh, you have a flat stomach." It's like, dude, you and I both know that I don't.
Mm,
Genetically, I don't. My mom was thin and had a pooch because
Mhm.
we have no hips.
but you have no hips. Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Right. Mhm.
And I'm fine with having no hips. I'm fine with it. I just wish.
Right. Yeah.
that I didn't-
And
I
what's
see
really
people-
funny, I wish I had what you have because I hate my hips and I hate my legs and I hate my butt. And I feel like I would trade what you have over what. Again, the grass isn't greener on the other side. And it's like, no matter what you have, you're not going to like, you're going to want with it. But if I had what
Yep.
you had, I wouldn't like that either. I'd probably want what I
Yep.
have now. So it doesn't matter. But again, as a rule of thumb, I think what Sports Illustrated did was brilliant. And I think we continue to need to go in that direction. It's not about inclusivity. It's about accepting biologically where our bodies sit and where they're comfortable. And that hopefully we can get into just better, healthier, what we consider eating. I mean, you guys call it soda, we call it pop. But
My son said pop the other day. Since you just said that, my son was like, "Yeah, they had different pops." And I'm like,
what?
"Pops?
Yeah.
Is it over on this side of the
We say soda. Yeah.
too? We say soda."
Yeah. Yeah. You guys say soda, we say pop. But I mean, you don't see many people here drinking soda very often, and I don't give it to my kids. But down when we went to the States, you know, everybody, I have a friend, you know, even drinking that stuff, it's just, again, it's what contributes to, and all sorts of health problems. But I mean, it's not about the look component. It's just more about health. And everybody just needs to do what they need to do. And we need to have a healthier perspective and change what modern day beauty is so that we can get rid of all this eating disorder crap and body dysmorphia.
And just because someone's really thin, like I have a friend who used to run Ironmans, running,
Exercise
biking,
and
whatever.
Yeah.
And his dad had juvenile diabetes 1, and he ended up getting it.
Mhm.
And this guy has like no body fat, you know, he has to struggle to put weight on. So don't assume that thin people are healthy and
No.
heavy people are not, because
Nope.
that is not the case.
That's not the case. Again, there's a uniqueness and like any mental health issue, we're all on a spectrum. We are on 8 different spectrums and we all flow differently on these spectrums and move throughout life on these spectrums of mental health. And it's the same thing with our physical health, right? And every person is unique and you can't compare yourself to other people because it is just, everybody is so different. But everything on the outside is very deceiving. So
Yeah.
again, with Peterson saying, you know, fitness and expectations is such a load of crap. He's basing it on what you look like. And I know 99.9% of those models on Sports Illustrated have eating disorders, body dysmorphia, are jacking laxatives or not eating, and they are working out 5 times a day. That's not healthy. That's
And
not.
how many have you heard once they retire? How many of you heard say, "I was starving all the time"?
I did 2 fitness competitions in my life. 2. And the next one I did, I'm like, I'm out of here. Every single woman here has an eating disorder. And when they're talking about, oh, I'm going to allow myself to have some cherries because it's a treat, I'm like, fuck this. No,
Yeah,
this is
it's
brutal. No.
Mm-mm.
And men are just as bad that are into bodybuilding. And again, drinking tuna shakes with Crystal Light. Does that sound healthy to you? And yet you look at them on the cover of this magazine and everybody thinks they're epitome of health. No, they're drinking aspartame with tuna fish out of a can as protein because they can't have any sugar, any carbohydrates, and it's pure. It is so unhealthy. It is not healthy at all. So the next time you pick up the cover of a magazine or you look at somebody on a social media clip, it's filtered to shit. It's been photo opped. It's been modified and you look at somebody on stage or you look at somebody on the fit, they are not healthy. It is the opposite. And a lot of these people, if they do it often enough, will drop dead of heart attacks because their body is so up and down and what you're doing to it.
You've heard back in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of fitness, like Jim Fix, I think it was his name. He was a marathon runner and stuff, and a fitness guru. A lot of them heart attacks because it was
because well, right before I competed, I had to starve myself and eat nothing but boiled chicken breasts and yams for 7 months. That's all I had, 3-4 times a day until the end. I had to completely carb deplete. Couldn't have dairy, like that's all I ate. And then I had to carb deplete. And then right before 2 or 3 days, I had to start loading back up on the yams and the chicken. And the day before I competed, I had to then eat peas, Snickers bars, sugar and carb load like you wouldn't. And what it does is at the same time as dehydration, okay, you give yourself the saran wrap effect. So you get all vascular. So what happens is your muscles start expanding because of all the carbohydrates and your skin starts to tighten. And it's too quick for your body to gain all that fat back, right? And so basically you get the saran wrap effect. So when you go on stage, you're so vascular and it looks like you have 0 body fat, but you're eating. And for dinner, I had to go out and eat prime rib with all the grub, all the fat, all the fries, drink wine, alcohol, and have no water. I called my mom crying. I was so thirsty. All I wanted to do was drink. I went from 4 liters of water a day down to no water for 2 days. And I had to keep rinsing my mouth out with mouthwash because I had cotton mouth. It was so awful. I still wasn't lean enough. In the morning, my trainer was able to pull a little bit of skin off my stomach. And he's like, by tonight, I won't be able to pull anything. And he was right. And he came back and he's like, nope, still not almost tight. You need to go home and eat a cup of rice and get all the water out of it. It was like paste. And I had no water in my body. I was dying. The day of competition. Literally dying. The day of competition, I was able to drink a Diet Pepsi and I had to sip on it all day. That's all I wanted. That's what people think. When I walked on stage, they thought I was healthy. That's what I did to my body. I ate everything I wasn't allowed to eat, and I had to get, and that's what's so hard on your heart.
Because we're not meant for that.
No, we're not. So when you look at this stuff, just know these people are literally killing themselves to look like that. It is not good for you. And so Jordan Peterson is backing this shit up when he spews the crap he's spewing. It's why it triggered me so bad. And when I watched it, I'm like, this makes my blood boil. And this guy is a dinosaur and he should not be a psychologist.
And he's a misogynist and on and on. Yeah. So anyway. On that note, we are at the end. We have so many different podcast topics just on this alone. However, if you have any topics or anything that you want to ask us or comments, please, we'd love to know your thoughts on this too. Love to know your thoughts on this. Leave it in the comment section, or you can email wcwycw1@gmail.com. Please let us know your thoughts, any topics, anything like that, any wines, anything. Click the notification button up at the top on the YouTube or any place that hosts the podcast, and you'll be notified every time we drop a new episode, usually about every 2 weeks, sometimes every week. It all depends. And this one may end up being 2 parts.
Yes, it might be. I was going to say, if you guys have any topics in particular or a spinoff of what we've talked about that you want more information on in particular, make sure that you comment below for sure.
Please. So on that note,
happy Halloween, everyone.
Yeah, happy Halloween. Don't eat too much candy.
The candy.
No. It's just, I mean, if you eat too much, the whole goal is not to get, maybe it is to get sick for the one time, but it's just bad for your teeth and all of that.
I know.
But don't take your kids candy though. Not all the, some of the good ones.
Right.
When we buy Halloween candy, I try to buy the stuff I don't like.
Oh, good for you. I buy all the stuff I do like, and then I steal all the Twix bars.
I hate Twix. Oh, you can have my Twix. Twix and Kit Kats.
Kit Kats all day long. I like all of it chocolate. But yes, happy Halloween, everyone. And again, just love who you are. And go listen to that Colby Kelly song because it's great. It's called Try.
It is. If it's the one I'm thinking of, I would cry when I heard it. So
I did too. Right.
It is.
So we love you all. Have a good evening.
You
Thanks.
too.
Thanks, Dr. Larman.
Don't you like you? 'Cause I like you.